Position we see here is from the game Wesley So against Lenderman in the US Championship of 2020. It's quite an illustrative endgame, and we start here with the rook trade, and we shall see that after the movement of some knights, we will have an equal color bishop ending with the same amount of pawns on both sides, although the white pawn structure is perhaps slightly better. We have a fixed pawn on a4, more or less fixed, which is a light square. We have one on h3 for white, but that pawn can still move. And we have 4 loose pawns for black, and the pawn structure is slightly better for white, but it will not be easy to convert this at all if you're searching for the win. The game continues here with king to e3. After which we have black responding with the bishop. Bishop moved to e4, d7, and now we move to h4, putting our pawn on the dark square. Bishop's moves, king to d3. After the check, we have a king to e4, and bishop to d7. Now, bishop to a2, c8, and f7. After a couple of these moves, slightly interesting. Let me just continue a bit. And we see the move f5 check, which fixates a second black pawn on a white square. So that means that we can now effectively attack 2 pawns, and on the same time even. So that is slightly promising for white, playing king to d3. And after bishop b5 check, if we would want, as white, we would want to have a draw, but actually quite easy to force that now. If you play c4, although you fixate one of your own pawns on the light square, you can see that the black king cannot go through the center, as the white pawns have control over that. The h5 opening is controlled by the white d1 bishop, and it can move along to d1 h5 square to keep control of that. Black can never put a bishop there because the king cannot support it, so it cannot be challenged. So there's no entrance from that end. So the only way for the black king to enter the position would be through a maneuver, as you see, which goes through a5 and b4, which can be stopped very simple by just putting our king on c3, and it's that draw. Wesley, however, was not searching for the draw, and therefore played king to c2, bishop to c4, king d2, and now bishop to b5. King to c1, to d5, bishop to c2, now hitting both pawns on a4 and f5, defending both pawns with the bishop, and now king b1. So as the bishop is hitting both targets, the idea for white is to play king a2 to a3 to have a second attacker on the a4 pawn. The black king cannot enter white's position, as the pawns and bishop do a very good job in protecting that. And the only way for a black to defend it is going through c4 or c6 if possible, but not now because we can just hit then on a4. The only real way is to go through c4 and move over to b5 and a5, and it would be just in time to protect the pawn. It's actually how it plays out as well. King c4, a2, b5, a3, and king to a5, where now everything is defended, but also attacked. Bishop to d1, relieving pressure on one of the pawns, in this case on e5, but taking control of h5, so the black pawn cannot move there. Not that it really wanted to, but it's not an option now at all. Since the pressure is relieved from the f5 pawn, but not from the a4 pawn, white can play bishop on this diagonal, and so it moves to b5. The white bishop moves to f4. Could attack both pawns again, but then we just move the black bishop back. So, and here black chooses to play bishop d7, where actually I thought for a moment about bishop to d3, which you now can protect your pawns from the front, which would be a possibility. However, black has to be careful because if white places a bishop on d7, at the moment we are in c2, then zugzwang is luring. So that might be a very dangerous situation. Perhaps considering that, black decided to play bishop to d7, bishop to h5, c6, e2. And now we have a bit of shuffling of bishops. Here we offer the trade, white cannot accept. And let me just continue for a bit till a moment where it gets interesting. Not all of these moves have a deep positional purpose, so I guess it also has to do with gaining some time on the clock, as this is a rapid game which is played with increments, so putting some moves on the board just helps you to get some time. Here we have white playing h5, effectively saying, okay, I'm attacking two of your pawns. One double and one single, you are in a form of zugzwang, but I do offer you my pawn. So black, of course, accepts. No, not really another way, unless it wants to lose a pawn. And now we take on f5, and black takes on h5. Here, bishop h7 is played, which is a fine move. I just want to show you something very interesting. Bishop to d7 will be a fun joke in a way, because if now you play bishop f3, then white can continue with f5, and bishop g4 does not work because of f6, and if you take the bishop, oops, there goes the white pawn queening. So did not happen. Bishop to h7 was played, and here black actually plays a very good defensive move, retreats the king to b6, making sure to step into the square of the white pawn. f5, king c7, and now white captures the pawn. King to d6, bishop g6, of course we cannot take. That will be kind of disastrous. We take, and it's not stoppable anymore, so that's not an option. So bishop to f3 is played, f6, and black is also running now with the h pawn, king b5. Well, we need to stop the pawn now, so bishop to f5 is kind of forced, bishop g2, f7, king needs to catch that pawn, and white takes the second pawn. We now have connected passers with b2 and c3, and this will actually be very interesting and illustrative, I would say. h3, and we sacrifice our bishop, or actually we have not a real choice, we need to trade our bishop for the pawn. And now we instantly move our pawn to c4. Black, of course, cannot waste any time and takes on f7. And this is a very interesting ending. But technically this is a draw. White plays king to d6, very logical move, blocking out black king. King wants to get close to the pawns, of course, so king e8, and again king c7, blacking out the black king. Now, a very principal move in this position would have been bishop to f1. This is a very logical and principal move. The reason for that is you want to stop the advance of the white pawns as soon as possible. So you want to take control of the diagonal as early as possible, so the pawns cannot safely wander further down the board. If you put the bishop on f1, then clearly you are attacking the c4 pawn. Well, it can defend, let's say b3. Then we just wait. Bishop e2. Well, it's clear we cannot move the b3 pawn because it's an instant draw. After bishop takes on c4, then the last pawn we can sacrifice a bishop. So let's say c5. Keep waiting. Bishop f1. c6. That's as far as that pawn goes without allowing the black king in. Bishop e2. And now white can improve the position a little bit more by playing the pawn up to b4, and that is as far as that pawn can go. We keep waiting, king to e7, and now we have a couple of options. Let's say we move our king to b8 to want to help promote our c pawn. Then we now have king to d6. We step in, and after c7, bishop to g4, of course sacrificing our bishop whenever it promotes. And well, if you now push, we just take the pawn and our king's next to last. So that's a clear draw. So let's move our king to b7. Now we can give check just to harass. And yeah, the idea is very simple. If king back to b8, we just move back our bishop again. And after b5, now we get king to c5, securing the draw this way. So that would be a very basic idea. And it comes forth not out of deep calculation, but just following the principle of trying to stop those pawns as quickly as possible. And put your bishop on the earliest diagonal where it can stay and where it can harass those pawns. That would be the basic concept behind it. Here, instead of king d8, we can try king b6, but then we just get king d7, and the principle is the same. So that is to explain why bishop to f1 is a principle. Here, bishop to g2 is played, and as I made visual for you here, it is perhaps logical to take control of the long diagonal, but you really want to take the f1 a6 diagonal with the pawns in these positions. Yeah, this is not yet lost, so this move is not yet losing, but it does not follow the principle. b4, and now bishop f1. So in a way, we still get the same position as before after c5. So now black can still follow the exact same moves that we played before, but we got that through a different move order. However, in this position, as you remember, we need to wait. So king e7 is fine, and we get again the same principle as before. White can still move c6 first, but that's about it. And that did not happen. Black here made the mistake / blunder of playing bishop to b5. And it's very crucial here because you just give up moving to the right diagonal, and this tempo will cost you the game. When this actually happened, it was very interesting for me that the three titled and actually very strong players that were giving commentary on it, including Yasser Zerwan. All they said at this moment was, oh, look at the evaluation bar, and the bishop must be on a wrong diagonal, which is very interesting that people with that deep of chess knowledge and history still don't fully know this ending, which at that level might be elementary. But having said all of that, it's not that easy. I didn't find it in a second either, but I would expect people who have this as a profession to study these positions, and clearly Wesley So is very good at these positions, and he understands. He understood instantly why bishop b5 was winning, because c6 is played. And now, yeah, black has a real big problem. Black played bishop a4, and now just king b7, and after king e7, yeah, you get c7. And now the problem is, if black can play king d6 and then sacrifice the bishop on the next move with c8, yeah, then we're fine. But we can't. Instead of playing the move, if you go back a bit, so here, after playing bishop to a4, king b7, now we want to move our bishop on the proper diagonal, but we can't. So we waste a move, more or less, and we just cannot be there on time. Queen is there, take, and this is just the one king and pawn endgame. King d6, and as you can see, the king cannot come closer to the pawn, so it made one more move. King d7, and now b5, and black resigned, as this is a clear one game for white. The full game was actually literally 99 moves. I'll put the PGN in the description. I'll be following more games from the US Championship. I hope they are as illustrative in endgames, or that it provides some beautiful tactics so I can upload it on this channel. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy my work, please subscribe, hit the like button, and I hope to see you in future videos. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye bye.